welcome to the Read to Inspire podcast. I am Bhekisisa Ngomane, the host. So this evening, I am joined by another author. His name is Bhekisisa Ngomane. He is an author of a book called Elite Productivity. Just a brief bio about him. Bhekisisa is an author, he is a leader, he is a speaker at an organization called Toastmasters International. I just want to read something quickly, which is very interesting here. He says he's passionate about bringing out the best in people through his keynotes, workshop, and coaching. So from that, you could tell that he's also a business coach, a trainer in terms of networking, in the networking space, among other things. But for now, let's not take so much time and welcome the man himself to the podcast. Thank you, Becky, for joining me, and welcome to the Read to Inspire podcast.
Thank you. I feel honored to be invited here, and I look forward to sharing what I've got. And I look forward to learning from you too, because there's always this exchange of energy where you always learn something. But I'm really excited to be here, and I look forward to the conversation we're going to have.
As you know, in this podcast, we are all about reading. Our mission is basically to promote the culture of reading within the African continent and beyond. So as a way to kickstart the show, I want to ask you, when did you start reading books outside of academia? And why do you think reading is important?
I remember I started reading books when I was about 11, when I became really an avid reader and a lover of books. A certain teacher of mine, who was not even teaching us English, he was teaching us history, but he really challenged us and told us that his daughter, who is like 4 or 5 years old, reads books. And he did it in sort of a negative way, but I was pricked, and I was like, I really need to learn, and I need to read. Okay. That day, I left the school. I was in standard 4. So I was standard 4. I'm telling you how old I am. This is grade 6 for the young ones. Yeah. I was in grade 6, and I left the school that day, and I went straight to the library, and I got my library card. And since then, I've never looked back. I always have a book in my hand. I always love reading.
Wow, beautiful. If I may ask, do you remember perhaps during those times, what was that one book that got you hooked into the culture of reading? Do you remember perhaps the author and the title?
Geez, I read so many books. It was mostly short stories. It was mostly novels. And now and then I would go into reading science books and so forth. But a book that I still remember reading, and that has, it's amazing that I read so many books during that time, but this one still stands out up to this day. I can't remember the author, but it was a book that the title of the book was Learning to Lead. And when I started reading when I was 11, so when I read that book, I think I was about either 12, about to turn 13. And I read about leadership, the difference between leadership and management. And it fascinated me that, look, wow, there's a difference between a leader and a manager. And there's this is how a leader acts, and this is how a manager acts. And from then on, I think I got onto the path of personal development. As much as I still read the novels and scientific books and so forth, I just got into the path of personal development.
I'm sure even now, that's where you lean more towards to personal development. In fact, non-fiction book in general, because there's fiction and non-fiction.
Exactly, yes.
Oh, I see. All right, so I think I didn't quite get your answer in terms of like the importance of reading. I know there are so many benefits of reading. Maybe you can just mention your top 3 or 5 benefits that you have gained from reading books.
Let me take you back to that teacher. So when he told that to us, his thing was, I want you to, for you to be a better communicator, a better speaker, and for you to handle the English language very well, you need to read. So that was my motivation at that time. I need to learn how to handle this language because this is a language that is going to get you a job. This is a language that's going to move you forward. And I really thank him for that he pricked me, or he inspired me, though almost in a negative way, but he inspired me to start reading. And at that time, it was just to learn the English language. Having said that, now when I read, reading takes you to towns you've never been. It takes you to countries you've never been. It sometimes takes you to galaxies you've never been. So the beauty of reading is that while you are living in maybe one place, you've got bigger and better experiences than someone who doesn't read. So that's why I love reading. Let me turn a bit into personal development. You see, reading personal development takes you into the mind of someone, and they take you to their experiences, and some of the experiences that they had are there to grow you as a person, and you don't have to do the same mistakes that they did because you are learning from what they went through. So that is just the beauty of reading. It takes you where you might have not been.
Yeah, that answer is very exciting. I feel like I'm getting goosebumps in my body already. But before we get excited, let's go into your book now. And maybe as a way of kicking off the book discussion itself, I'm just curious. I've read, of course, in terms of when did the journey of writing the book start? But I'm curious to find out, how did the idea of this book come about? Who or what inspired you to write this book?
That's a very beautiful question. I'm going to have to give you a backstory. So when I was young, I think it was about 16, 17. Remember, I've been reading since I was 11. And when I was about 16, 17, I thought, I want to write a book. I want to be an author. And then I started writing poems. I started writing short stories. Most of those were read by my friends, and they would encourage me, and they said, look, you are such a great writer. I would start a novel and finish it halfway. And eventually I finished school and I went to college. And at that time now, the focus was on academia work. And still, I didn't throw that dream away. I didn't throw that goal away of wanting to be an author. And at that time, I remember I said, maybe what I'll write one of the engineering books, because I was in engineering, or I'll write a book, a mathematics book, but or maybe a science book or anything like that. So that's what I was thinking. Eventually finished my college and I went into the world of work. At that time, the book thing it fizzled away. I almost forgot about it. It wasn't until I picked up and at that time, I think I went into, I wish I had a word to explain what I went through, because my life was going a certain way. You are into primary school, you're into college, you're into so you're in primary school, high school, college. Now you've got a job, and now you think, wow, everything is going to be solved. And all of a sudden, you are hit with this depression to say, but everything should be right. Why isn't everything right? And I started searching and going more into personal development. I read a book by Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. And when I read that book, that dream or that inspiration to write a book got rekindled. Wow. Now, having said that, this is now 2005. And between 2005 and many between 2005 to the day I wrote my book, I had started books and stopped because of, I don't know, I would say it's the lack of discipline. It could be that maybe I didn't really have that inspiration. I wanted to write because of the sake of writing. It could be because of the lack of coaching. I think the big one was the lack of coaching. And I got started with Toastmasters a couple of years later, around 2018. Then I realized, I'm spending time with authors. I'm spending time with speakers. I started asking questions, and some of them inspired me, and I started reading books that were written by South Africans, and I think that was a big shift in my mind, because I was used to reading books from Americans. Now you get to a point where you think maybe this thing is for Americans. When I started reading books by South Africans, then the inspiration just kept growing. Wow. Now, we went into lockdown in 2020. When we went into lockdown in 2020, everyone was doing, those who loved cooking started cooking, those who loved exercising started exercising more. I didn't really know what to do with myself. I was still speaking, and I remember thinking to myself during the lockdown, geez, this lockdown is going to affect the economy. And when this lockdown affects the economy, the people that are most productive are the people that are going to survive the next economy. Because all of a sudden, you're going to lose your job. You're going to maybe lose your salary. Companies are going to have to cut down on staff, cut down on some resources. And therefore, the people that are going to win after the lockdown are the people who are most productive. And I started researching on productivity. During that time, my mother fell sick. My mother was over 63 years old, and then she went to hospital. She has got sugar diabetes. And remember that time they said if you got sugar diabetes and you are over 63, it could be deadly. So during that time, it was a difficult time in our lives, prayer and hoping and like being there for each other. Miraculously, my mom came back. The first thing she said when she walked through my door was, "When are you writing your book?" So when she said that, at that time, I was researching about productivity, and I said, the world needs this book right now. And I started researching more on productivity, and I started, and I wrote a book on productivity.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story, bro. It sounds like the universe was conspiring at that time. It was at the right time and the perfect time for the book to come.
Exactly.
So happy that your mom said those words to you, especially at the right time. All right, so as you're sharing the whole story, there's something powerful about these authors that we know to be famous in different parts of the world. You mentioned the book by Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. Funny story. I've never been to the gym up until I read that book. And my key takeaway from that book was that Tony Robbins in that book, he said, when you start exercising, for you to be fit in a very healthy way, he emphasized you having to go for cardio, like aerobic exercises. Let's say in terms of lifting weights, aim to do at least 60 and 40, but the aerobics part should always be more. You can even go on to 80, maybe for the whole year, just focusing on getting to do aerobic exercises to get your body to be flexible. Then later on, if you are into weightlifting, then you can, go on and do weightlifting. But to establish the base and the foundation, aerobics exercise are key, not only for your body, but to pump more oxygen into your mind so that you can be healthy mentally. So I'm glad you mentioned that book. It's one of my favorites that I've read earlier on that got me to join the gym. It was because of that influence of that book.
That is a powerful book. When I'm going through a plateau, sometimes you grow, then at some stage you feel like I'm not growing anymore. It's my go-to book. I always go back to that book because I know I'm going to find something that's going to take me to the next level. That book covers pretty much everything: your mindset, your physiology, your money, the people you keep around you, how you communicate to yourself, how to communicate with others. It pretty much covers everything. Exercise. So that is pretty much other than the Bible, that is also a book. I don't want to say a book of life, but it's a textbook on how you can really make it in this world.
Maybe you can say Bible for personal development.
Exactly.
All right, so let's continue with your book now. I mean, the way your book was written, it's a well-researched book, let me put it that way, because it's a collection of experiences gathered from colleagues that you have interacted with, your friends, mentors, and even books. And I got to understand you value networking so much. based on experiences, yes, you are venturing in your journey of personal development. I just want you to tell us more about the importance of networking, especially if you are serious about your journey in personal development.
That's a packed question, and it's a very beautiful question. You see, and let me answer it this way. I think I also say it in the book. Let me answer it this way. Michael Jordan is one of the greatest basketballers, if not the greatest. Okay, I won't get into that debate because basketballers will really fight with me. There's Kobe Bryant and there's
LeBron James, Stephen.
He's arguably the greatest basketballer. Now, Michael Jordan started got into professional basketball around 1982. And he was winning accolades by himself, like the greatest, the VPM, most valued player. He would the greatest newcomer in basketball. So he was winning all these accolades, the highest scorers. But his team was not winning the championship. It wasn't until his coach, Phil Jackson, told him, look, there is no I in team.
I remember that.
Exactly. You need to work with the team so that you can win. And Michael Jordan said, but there is I in win. But he said, look, there is I in win, but you win alone, but you're not winning the big one, the trophy. And at that time, he understood that, and he started working with a team. He started working with the people that he was with. And then he started winning those championships, 6 of them in a row. Now, having said that, you asked about networking. I've realized early on in my life that human beings are meant to be together. And why are we meant to be together? Because we grow each other. We learn from each other. We guide each other. Because sometimes, like I said, sometimes you've got experiences that I don't have, and that might help me. And that is the power of networking. The more you network with people, you'll know more, you'll get guidance, you'll get support, doors will open for you. I mean, most of the doors that have opened for me in my life, it was because I networked with someone. Even writing this book, because I had networked with a couple of people, which led me to the coach that helped me to write this book. And this is where I am. So anything you're going to achieve in your life, let's talk about visionary readers. Visionary readers was your vision, but there was no way it could happen without people.
True.
Any business you have in your mind, it is your business. It is your vision. There is no way you are going to do that without people. And that's why the more people you know, you set yourself a big chance of making it bigger.
That is so true, sir. And as you're speaking, I'm reminded of different quotes and proverbs. First one that came to mind is an African proverb which says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. And as you're sharing the story of, Michael Jordan, I'm also reminded of a quote by Malcolm X. He mentions something very powerful, especially when it comes to leadership. And I hope I won't mess up this quote, but he said something along the lines of, when I is replaced with we, even illness becomes wellness.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That's basically the power of having to recognize that in this world, if you want to be happy, if you want to be successful, if you want to be happy, you just cannot do it on your own. You need other people. Like you were saying with visionary readers, you might have a great idea, you might have a vision, but as a leader, you need to be able to get people together, work with people, collaborate so that you see that vision come to life. So thank you for sharing that. And I must say, you having to explain or basically answer each and every question by telling us a story, that's basically the trait of every great communicator. They tell people the answers, or they communicate by not forgetting the importance of storytelling, just to make their points more vivid and more clearly. Thank you for that, sir.
And it's great you raise that, because a lot of people think of productivity as a science. So when they see this book, Elite Productivity, they think of it as a book that is full of science. And as you read the book, you realize that though the science is there, but it's stories that makes the science and back it up that it works. If you follow the science and you follow these examples, you'll get what you want. And great, like you say, great leaders, that is how they communicate. Great teachers, that is how they communicate. Even the Lord Jesus Christ himself, that is how he communicated. He used stories to make a point. And just to digress a bit here, I've gone to a CEO's report back, or a manager's report back, and they put you a graph there and they tell you about the graph and about the numbers, and by the time you leave there, you're like, what were they talking about? They don't talk to your soul, they don't talk to your heart, so that by the time you leave there, you're like, I'm going to work for this company, I'm going to make it work. But if you listen to great business people, Richard Branson, you listen to there's another one that's skipping my mind now,
even Steve Jobs and the likes.
Steve Jobs, when they communicate, they use stories, and it is through those stories that they get to cast their vision, and their people see the vision, and the people buy into the vision, and they execute accordingly. That is just the power of stories. Sorry to digress, but it's just a powerful thing that you just said there.
Yeah, true. You didn't digress at all, because what you just said, it relates back to the conversation. It's quite relevant. And while we're speaking on stories as a way of giving your vision, more clarity to your vision, your first chapter in your book is about clarity. And this is beautiful, because before you can achieve anything in life, you need to have that mental clarity, or the vision must be clear to the people you are leading, especially if you are a leader. I want you to tell us and maybe give us your idea of having to put the chapter on clarity being the first one in your book. What was the intention?
I'm not sure if I had the intention, but when I wrote this book, I had all these chapters put together on, and they were not following each other the way they are following each other on the book. And the more I wrote about it, I realized that everything I was saying would lead back to clarity. You need to know what you are working on for you to be productive. You need to know, you need to be able to communicate your what you're working on, or you need to be able to communicate your vision. You need to communicate with your team. It goes back to clarity. So everything just tied back into clarity. So I started then writing a chapter on clarity, and I said, this would be the first chapter, because everything else that is in that just ties back into that first chapter.
Yeah, that's so true. And now that you've mentioned that, I remember after finishing some of the chapters, I think 2 or 3, you refer the reader back to go back to chapter 1 to get more clarity, to get a better understanding what you meant by clarity. And then you ask them to proceed with the book. So that is beautiful. I think now I get the intention of why you had to put clarity as the first chapter.
Dr. Swangiseni, if we can teach this as a subject in school, just be clear.
Yes.
Like once as soon as people break into that, to be clear of who you are, be clear of what you want, be clear about your day, what my day today, how do I want it to look like, and be very clear about that. A lot of things, a lot of things would be much easier. A lot of leaders would be able to communicate with clarity, so that their people understand them and their people execute on their vision. A
Absolutely.
lot of parents wouldn't have to worry about their kids because they would communicate with clarity. They would
Mm,
even help their kids get clarity. If we can get that right,
mm.
almost everything will just fall into its place.
I believe that definitely. Here, I wish there could be a way indeed. Maybe, hopefully, this conversation or this episode will somehow lend itself to a government official who's
Mm,
very influential in changing the curriculum of our
that would be
education
great.
system. I hope and pray. And there's another chapter which is quite interesting. And I think, you hear people when they have a problem, right? And sometimes they try to fix the problem, but they do not go back to the root cause. They just fix
Mm.
the symptoms. And I had that idea as I was reading this chapter about feeding your monkey. And you'll correct me if I'm wrong here. To me, it sounds like you calling an addiction a monkey. Will that be correct? And I want to know, since you are nodding, why do you call an addiction a monkey? I love this metaphor, by the way, but I want you to expound on this. Why do you call an addiction a monkey? And why should we feed monkey in our own terms?
And oh wow, that's a beautiful question. A lot of people love that chapter because they think it gives them a free pass to their addictions. And if you read it right, you
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
that it is really not a free pass. It's just to say, feed your monkey at your own terms, right?
Mm,
Now, let's talk about addictions. Addictions sometimes can be very, very detrimental. Now,
mm,
human beings by nature are are susceptible to addictions,
yeah.
right? It's just other people are addicted to things that are disruptive,
Mm,
right? And because they and when they're addicted to things that are destructive, and they can pull them back and they can make them really go by the wayside in their lives. Now, I want to warn people of those addictions like excessive
social.
intake of alcohol,
Mm,
drugs, and I'm not talking about those addictions. That if
okay.
you have that, please go to a doctor, go to go get help.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, the addictions I'm talking about are addictions like social media, addictions like uh, researching. There's a friend of mine who wants to
Mm,
start a business, but he's been researching that business for years.
mm,
And sometimes it feels like, no, you are doing something productive. I'm
yeah.
researching. When are you going to start doing? And it becomes an addiction because it's a monkey now. It's this thing that I have to feed. And why do I call it? I didn't really have the metaphor of the monkey, how that metaphor came about. I was actually going through a YouTube, and I don't
Mm,
know how I landed on this video where a woman was feeding the monkey. She's got a monkey
mm,
pet, and while she's got this monkey pet, this monkey, she's feeding it and it looks like a nice fruit salad. And while she's feeding it, this monkey runs, jumps around and wants to be fed and wants to be fed. And then this woman doesn't feed that monkey until it settles down. She says, no, settle down, settle down. Then it settles down. Then she feeds the monkey.
mm,
And after a while, as soon as the monkey swallows it, and that's how addictions are. As
mm,
soon as you get into something, you love it so much, or your dopamine shoots so high, and then your dopamine wants to have that feeling again.
mm,
So it's that thing that still wants to be fed over and over again. We've been on YouTube now. We've been on Facebook. Got a bit of dopamine,
yeah.
put it aside. Let's do some work. We need a bit of more dopamine. Let's go back to Facebook. And then you find yourself feeding your monkey, but you're feeding it at its terms. When it screams at you, you want to feed it. When it makes a noise, you want to feed it. Now, in the book, I say, no, don't do that. You
Mm,
need to feed your monkey like that woman at
yeah.
your own terms. When it wants to be fed, stop it, relax, chill, sit down. When you are settled, I will feed you. But
Mm,
when you are making noise and you want my attention, I will not feed you.
beautiful. I'm glad you made that differentiation between these kind of extremes types of addictions and those ones
Mm-hmm.
that are not so serious, like social media. Because like you said, indeed, if you're suffering in this kind of addiction like alcohol and drugs, you seriously need to get professional help. And I wouldn't even recommend you to say, feed your monkey these kind of addictions at your
Not on
home.
that one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I even take painstakingly say it in the book that if your monkey has taken a hold of you to a point where it's out of control and you can't control it anymore, including social media, by the way, including things like smoking cigarette, or including, I'm trying to think of an addiction, including sex. Sex is, you use it for procreation, but when it has taken over your life, then you need professional help. Go get professional help.
True, true. When you mentioned sex, I was about to say porn, because that's another thing that could be addictive.
Exactly.
All right, so now, okay, since we're still talking about this kind of addictions, on the other side, in your book, you're very clear the kinds of monkeys you need to feed are like social media. Because if you think about it, some people, they have online businesses. They need to use social media to market and advertise their business in order to drive sales. And you've mentioned some very interesting acronyms, or should I say abbreviations in your book, called NIPAs and EPAs. And maybe if I will correct me if I'm wrong, I think the NIPAs are non-income producing activities versus income producing activities. And as such, can you maybe give us some examples of income versus non-income producing activities? And maybe how do you recognize these are let's say on my daily schedule or to-do list on a daily basis, I need to avoid these because they are NIPAs. I need to focus on these because they are EPAs.
Fantastic. That's a great question. Now, what is a NIPA? You correctly put it well. It's a non-income producing activity. What is an EPA? It's an income producing activity. If you've got a business, right? Obviously, an EPA will be anything that is related to what is going to make an income to your business. Anything that's going to move the dial towards you making money. Let's say you are a businessman and you sell books, just like I do, just like you do. If you wake up every day, and that's the only, let's say that is your only business, right? And you make a call to a promoter to say, I want a speaking gig so that I can come promote my book. That is an EPA. If you wake up and you advertise your book on Facebook, that is an EPA. Because you can go to Facebook and say other things that are not even connected to your book. It is not and you are just liking and sharing, and that is not an income producing activity. So anything you do that is related to your income and that is going to eventually give you income, that is an income producing activity.
Oh, brilliant.
And NIPA would be a non-income producing activity. And sometimes some of those NIPAs are things that we have to do in our lives, but we need to know how to schedule them so that we are able to schedule our EPAs, our income producing activity. I make an example of washing my car. Car needs to be washed. A car needs to be washed. But if that is not your business, if your business is not washing cars, washing cars to you, you are only saving about what? 80 rands or 50 rands. For those who think in dollars, that's literally about $5 that you are saving. Because other people will not take their car to a car wash because they want to save that $5 or that 50 rands. But just let's say, and I take about an hour to wash a car. Let's say I use that hour to make calls so that I can sell my books and take that car to the car wash. You see now, that NIPA that is so important that needs to be done, I have given it to someone to take care of it so that I can take care of the important things that are going to move the dial in my business. Now I need to change gears here a bit because other people are like, but I've got a job.
Yeah.
Go to your job description and read on your job description on what you're supposed to do. Anything that you do that is not in your job description is a NEPA.
Wow. That now there's also another interesting part in your book where you compare time management versus energy management. That was beautiful. And I think you used an example from a book, Think and Grow Rich, to explain the concept of why it's rather important to manage your energy instead of your time. And you mentioned like time is a constant or something like that. Can you elaborate on that thought, please?
That's a beautiful one. And managers don't like me for this one. And for me, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
You see, when you manage your time, you've only got 8 hours. You've only got 24 hours.
Yeah.
Nothing less and nothing more. You cannot stretch it. It is just that. But your energy, you are able to do something about it. And I always ask this question: how many times have you found yourself that, no, man, I do have the time to do this. I'm actually free right now. I can do it. But you don't have the energy. Of things that you could do to manage your energy. First and foremost, what you said, if you exercise, you will get more energy. Now you are managing your energy so that you can take that energy and put it into time. Take your energy and put it into time. You can spend your time with the right people, because there are energy vampires who, when you spend your time with them, they will just eat up your energy until by the time you need to do something, you are depleted and you are flat and you can't do it. Or sometimes you can watch, you can go on YouTube and watch something that is inspiring, that can energize you so that you do it. Now, so that you do what you need to do. Now, a lot of us, we've got different things that energize us as people. So you need to find out what energizes you. Friend of mine, Andrew Tsuro, I'm sure you know him. He is one of the great leaders, and I learn a lot from him. Right. And I got this from him, by the way, where he said, look, for me to do something, I need to go towards my happiness. When I go towards my happiness, then I feel great, then I'm able to do stuff. So that's why you'll see him going to great places with a nice scenery, because that gives him energy to go work on something. And if you follow him on any of his social medias, he'll say secret location, because this is where he's energizing himself. He's filling his cup so that he can be able to then use up that cup. A lot of us, sometimes you've got the time, but your cup is empty. So find things that you do that fill your cup so that you can be able to pour into others.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I can relate to that. In fact, that's also my strategy now. And I've even came up like with a morning routine that I basically summarize in the form of an acronym called PRIME. So that PRIME is basically it means the P stands for pray, R for read, I for introspect, and then M for meditate, and then E for exercise. So I find that, so I'm basically, when I'm priming myself in the morning, what am I priming myself for? I am priming myself for happiness, because when I'm happy, I am able to do the activities I am supposed to do for that particular day. I am energized because I've started my day correctly. As you know, the book, The 5 a.m. Club, he says, if you win your morning, you win your day. And if you win your day, you win your life. That's Robin Sharma. So I can relate basically at all levels to what Andrew is saying, because
that is powerful. Wow, I love it.
For you to be
productive. Yes, pride. And that's where and I love how you say that you are clear. You see, it's taking us back to the first chapter. You are clear that when you are priming yourself, I'm priming myself so that I can be in my happy place. Because I know when I'm in my happy place, I'm able to be productive throughout the day.
Yeah. Speaking of productivity now, let's continue with your book. There's a formula there that I love. I love personal development because of all these things. Either we learn through formulas or through these acronyms or abbreviations or through stories. But the formula here that's relating to productivity, it says efficient plus effective, it is equal to productive. And in your book, you mentioned one means doing the right thing at the right time or something like that. Can you use that example to explain maybe to someone who's interested in terms of the difference between being effective versus being efficient and how that relates or makes you eventually to be productive or an elite producer, as the title of your book?
Awesome. Now, I love Kaiser Chiefs. Kaiser Chiefs is my team. They are going through a terrible time at the moment. They are really going through it, but I really love them. So I remember this one day I'm watching their game. They are leading 1-0. They are leading 1-0. And they decide to defend for something like 75 minutes. A soccer game is about 90 minutes. They're deciding to defend first. Now that is going to deplete you, going to kill you because you are chasing the ball throughout the game. You are not in control of the game. You are really chasing the ball. I remember as soon as a ref blew that whistle, I could see them like the relief. They fell on their knees, some of them. And in my mind, I knew that their next game, they're not going to be productive because they depleted all their energy there. Now, were they effective in winning that game? Yes, they were effective. But why were they efficient? No, they were not efficient. Because when you are efficient, you need to know how to get the highest results using the least of resources. And some of those resources could be your time. Some of those resources could be your energy. Some of the resources, it could be the stuff that you use, the material that you use to produce what you want to produce. So being effective, sometimes there are people who like, okay, I need to get this done and I will get it done, whatever it takes. And sometimes whatever it takes, it's you. It takes you to really kill yourself. And by the time you finish and it's done, you're like, yes, I've done this, but what have I used up? At a cost of what? At what cost did I do it? And that's what you need to, how we need to start wiring ourselves, that whatever we do, we need to ask ourselves at what cost. And if we can find a way to still get the results we want at a less cost. And when I say less cost, I'm talking about your energy, your time, other resources that you might want to use, including people, because people are resources, right? So instead of doing it alone, you are going to be efficient and get other people to do it with you. And that way you are efficient and you are productive. You become more productive because you are using less resources, but you're still getting the results.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that part, sir. And now I want us to get into the habits of elite producers. Of course, there are those habits. Okay, let me not elaborate further. I want you to take us through those habits of elite producers. What are the habits of elite producers?
Fantastic. And I'm going to go to elite productivity.
Cool.
And that is a chapter that is towards the end. I think it's the second last chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Develop elite productivity habits. This is on chapter 8. It's about 6 of them. Let me remind, I just need to remind myself. Yes, it's about 6 of them in total. Right? And the first one is what you had just said. Elite producers are like they are committed about starting right, being it starting their day, being it starting a certain project, being it starting a relationship, or whatever you start, make sure you start right, because there's a saying that goes like, there is no need to recover from a great start. If you start right, then you don't have to recover. I mean, even people who race, right, 100 meters, they need to make sure that that first step they take is the right step and they start right. And even when you've got a relay, you need to ensure that you put one of your fastest runners at the beginning. You must always start right. Right. Now, that is habit number one. Habit number two, elite producers, they ensure that they hang around other elite producers. Ensure that you keep the right company, because when you keep the right company, they will inspire you, they will energize you, and they will help you to level up to the point where you are also an elite producer. And when you feel like you've reached your ceiling, another elite producer will inspire you and they will help you to reach other levels. Now, I've got many stories on this, many stories on this, but let me go with this story. I remember when I was going for my aircraft maintenance engineer license, right? I got a couple of guys and we were going, we had the same goal. We are going for this license. And we came together and we said, we're going to study together. We're going to help each other. But while we were doing that, I started realizing that, no, man, I'm the only one that is studying here, because I'm the only one that always comes back and say, okay, this is what we did. This is look at that. And I'm not getting any feedback. Then I realized, maybe I'm not with elite producers here. And I started looking for people who had already achieved what I wanted to achieve. And I put them together and told them, this is what I want to do. And I want you to help me. Now, I hung around with those people. I started thinking like them. I started speaking like them. I started doing things just like them. And within a couple of months, I got my license. And the group that I was with for years, they still didn't get their licenses. Were they doing something? Yes, I would see them going to class. I would see them studying. But because they were not wired that way, they didn't achieve the results that I wanted to. They needed to achieve.
Or the power of association. Right. Let me stop you there before you complete them all. I want the reader to go and buy the book and get the rest for themselves.
And get all of them.
Because they are there.
I want to go to the last one quickly.
Okay.
It's six of them in total. The last one is make sure you finish strong. Now, this is one of those that I struggled with. And I almost have to be intentional about it to say, I want to finish strong. Because sometimes it's easy to finish a project just because you want to start another project. Project leaders would like push. And like, okay, there's another exciting project. Okay, let's finish this one quickly so that we can start this one. Don't do that to yourself, because you are messing up with your mind to say, whatever I start, it doesn't finish well anyway. And then it ends up becoming your standard. So make it a standard that whatever you start, you ensure that you finish strong. Finish a week strong. I know Fridays, a lot of people is, hunky-dory, it's Friday one. If you finish your Friday strong, you are sure that you're going to start your Monday right. And one of the things that you can do to finish strong is on Friday, when everyone is going home, you sit down for an extra 30 minutes and ask yourself, what went well this week? What could I have done better? And how can I challenge myself next week to be an elite producer? Guess what? Next week, you are moving to the next level and people are wondering, wow, this person is just growing. Constant and never-ending improvement. Can I never forget that?
Absolutely. And in Japanese, they call that Kaizen method. And I actually learned from Tony Robbins' book.
Exactly.
I love books. Yeah, so you've mentioned something important, like the first habit is basically to start strong, and then we just mentioned the last one, like finishing strong. In between, you spoke about the power of association. That reminded me of a quote by Jim Rohn saying, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with. So if you want to be a great or an elite producer, be associated or hang around with elite producers. That will make you an elite producer as well, as you have mentioned.
Definitely.
Let me ask you the last question now, Seb, before we wrap up the show. I'm sure we covered pretty much almost everything in the book, but I'll give you a chance to say something that you might have left. But now, you mentioned something important in the book that people usually call it, let's say, to-do list. But the way you rephrase that statement or that phrase, you basically say, get done list. It means you're already starting with an attitude that, okay, these goals, before I even start them, they are done. They are accomplished already. And you also mentioned something about the importance of keeping scores. Can you briefly tell us why are these things, or maybe why did you rephrase that statement like that, and why it's important to keep scores in your get done
Fantastic
list?
Wow, that's a very beautiful question. It's amazing. I only say that once, and a lot of people miss it. I can see that you really read this book. I really believe in the power of language, or how you phrase things, because they tend to give you a certain attitude, right? Now, if you say a to-do list, you are putting it in the future. And it remains in the future because it is my to-do list. A lot of people will even own it, and they wonder why they always have a to-do list and it's not finished. Now, what happens when you've got a to-do list? It keeps growing. And when it grows, it overwhelms you because it's a list and it's a to-do list, and you keep scratching stuff, but it keeps growing, right? And this frustrated me as well. And I said to myself, yeah, there are these things that are to do, and I need to do all of them, right? I go back to the first chapter. What do I want to achieve today? Let me be clear. This is what I want to achieve. So for me to achieve this, what do I need to get done? Now I'm rephrasing the question. What needs to get done? Okay, if I do this, that, it will be done. Now there are other things that need to be done. There are other things that are important. There are other things that are also screaming for your attention. But for me to achieve my goal for today, I need this done. And then my to-do list now becomes shorter. It's a get done list. If other things don't get, if I don't get to do other things, it's okay. So long as I get these done, I know I'll still achieve my results. Now my days, you are less overwhelmed because I'm not now running around like a headless chicken trying to do everything because I need to finish my to-do list. Just have a get done list. Limit it to about 5 things that you really need to get done, and that are connected or directly connected to your IPA, that are directly connected to your purpose. Remember the first chapter. Directly connected to your purpose. Other things you can always delegate. Great leaders do that, delegate. And if you are not a leader, you are not a manager, you can still delegate. Find someone who is great at that thing that you're not great at. Ask them to do it for you. They love doing it, and maybe it feeds into their purpose in life. You can always give it to them. If you've got a business, you don't have to do everything in your business. Like you are the marketing manager. You get other business people involved. There are people that are running marketing companies. Go to them and say, hey, I know maybe you are able to market your business, but remember, you still have to finish that presentation. Remember, you still have to make connections. Remember, you still have to hire a hall. Now, instead of trying to do everything, get other people to help you with other things, like delegate them and have partnerships. And so that then you focus on your IPA, so that then you focus on your purpose, on things that need to get done, then things get better. So I hope you understand the difference between a to-do list and a get done list. You don't throw the to-do list, you can keep it there, but have a get done list and keep it very short.
Beautiful.
Now let's talk.
Yeah,
let's talk. You wanted a follow through question there?
Yeah. Okay, no, I wanted to move on to the keeping score part.
Now, keeping score part, for a lot of us, we do this. We go to work, we do what we were hired for, and then we go home.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we go do the same, and we wonder why we don't even feel inspired to wake up to go to work. We wonder, why don't I even feel inspired to do this? It's because you are playing a game without scores, and a game without scores is not inspirational. And that's why in a soccer game, tennis game, in a golf game, whatever game there is, there's always a score. And that's why we go watch those people, because we want to know what the score is, how many goals were scored, and who won. Now, if you don't know what it entails to win your day, how would you know when you've won? Sometimes maybe you are winning your days, but you don't even realize it. Or you are losing, but because felt you were busy, you think you won your day, right? I had a coaching client of mine who says, I want to be more productive at work. And I asked him this question. I said, what does productive at your work entails? He couldn't answer that question. Wow. Now tell me, what does it mean for you at work? When you've achieved what, do we say you are productive? So he is not keeping score. So he's going to work and he's working, but he doesn't feel productive because he is not keeping score.
Yeah.
You say, okay, this is done. Let's say you're a salesperson, right? When you're a salesperson, you are measured on how many sales you make. Now, for you to keep scores, for you to make those sales, you're going to have to make calls.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're going to have to make presentations. Now, for you to make those presentations, you're going to have to set appointments. So these are the scores you need to keep. Okay, how many appointments do I need to make to do so many presentations? And for me to do so many presentations, it will give me so many sales. Now you can even measure yourself to say, okay, if I want to make one sale, I know I at least have to call 10 people today. When I call 10 people, I'll make one sale. But other people don't even know that. Okay, what does it take for you to make a sale? Then someone doesn't know. And they wonder why they are struggling to grow in their business or in their career. They are not measuring themselves or keeping scores.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Say, you know what? As I was reading your book, it's a very, I don't want to say very short book, but a short book that anyone can finish even within a day because it's that interesting. But if you pace yourself within 3 to 5 days, you are done. Despite the book being so small, I took copious notes, to be honest, with each and every chapter. And because some of the nuggets you have shared there, they reminded me of the nuggets that were shared somewhere else in other books by great authors. For instance, since we're talking about Get Done List now, you might have seen this video of one of my favorite authors, Brian Tracy. He was actually questioning people who use, New Year's resolutions or even writing their goals, like the language, as you have mentioned, from to-do list to get done list. For him, when he writes the years for the goals, he doesn't say 2023 goals, but he says 2023 accomplishments. And something that I've been practicing for the past 5 years now. And each and every year in December, I write down my top 10 goals. You recommend that people must write down at least 10. Don't make it many. Like you've mentioned on a day, don't write more than 5 get done list because you might get overwhelmed and then you don't accomplish them. Just 10 for the year. And the reason for that's why I got curious for you to explain the get done list, why. But as soon as you mentioned language is powerful. And then another thing that made me think and also reflect in terms of what you've mentioned, the thing about keeping scores, you reminded me of one of the Toastmasters, 1999 world champion of public speaking. His name is Craig Valentine. He said, when it comes to anything you want to accomplish, maybe measuring your progress, he said, what gets measured gets improved. And what gets recorded gets rewarded. And great speakers, they love those kind of rhymes. And as you're
Mm,
mentioning, like if you're not keeping score, how will you know that you are winning? And if you are not keeping score on a daily task that we have, like the get done list, you won't even know whether you are making progress or not. So that's the
mm,
beauty of having, to integrate different ideas and great books that provoke your thoughts like that. I can
mm.
recommend to anyone. This is one of the nuggets. I recommend anyone to read this book because it's that beautiful. I took a lot of notes. But I think, sir, now, thank you so much. We have come. Actually, I've asked everything I wanted to ask, but I'm definitely sure there's something, maybe a thought burning in your mind, perhaps something that is really also important you want the viewers to take away from your book. Anything?
And I think that is in the last chapter. And honestly, that last chapter that I wrote, it came as someone nudged me and said, really, your book is beautiful. It covers really everything. But if you can just nail it at the end, give us that one last chapter. Please give us. It was my editor, actually. And says she just said, give us that one chapter. And that last chapter is an invitation to be an elite producer.
Wow.
Like just I start that chapter by quoting a verse. See, when God created everything, he said, let there be, let there be. And each time he said, let there be, he said, it was beautiful, it was beautiful, it was beautiful. And at the end, he said, and God saw that there was no man to till the ground. As much as God saw that it was beautiful, he still felt, no man, there must be a man to till this ground. The ground that he had already said is beautiful. So our whole purpose on this earth, we came to make it better. We came here to reproduce and make more of what God has given us. That is our sole purpose. And that's why I invite everyone to be an elite producer. Wherever you are, as much as it is beautiful, can you make it better? Can you take it higher? Can you do it at an elite level? And that's why I call my book Elite Productivity. It's good to be productive. How about we become an elite producer and just take it to the higher level? Look, I hope you buy my book. I really hope and believe you buy my book. It will really open your mind. It will help you on a lot of things. But let's say you don't buy my book. I want you to ask yourself this question. What is an elite producer? That thing that you're thinking about, go be that. Be an elite producer. Wear a hat that says, I'm an elite producer. Wear a t-shirt that says, I am an elite producer. Wake up every day and say, I am an elite producer. That alone will change your life. And thank you for this opportunity, Dr. Swangseni.
You are welcome, sir. And thank you for autographing my book by saying, thank you, Sibongiseni. You are an elite producer. I subscribed and accepted the challenge even before I started reading the book. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I have two more questions that are not related to the book, but basically as Visionary Readers Book Club, as well as this podcast, we are all about promoting the culture of reading, as I've said in the beginning. So my next question is related to books that you have read before. Can you give us maybe one or two book titles that have made a significant impression or impact into your life that you can recommend to anyone to read who's watching this episode?
Okay, definitely Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I've mentioned Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins has got like 4 books. Anything on Tony Robbins will definitely change your life, especially Awaken the Giant Within. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
How to
Dale
Win
Carnegie.
Friends. Yeah, Dale Carnegie.
And
while you're still speaking about that one, I and many people who knows you knows that you are a Toastmaster. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a book about public speaking. We know at Toastmasters as well, leaders are made, we're practicing or honing our public speaking and communication skills. I want you to say, because we know you are also a keynote speaker and a trainer for that matter, can you give us maybe like 3 tips if anyone wants to make a very powerful and impactful talk? What are the key components, let's say top 3 for you, that makes that talk very impactful?
For me, especially the first one would be clear. There, I say it again. Be clear of what you want to say, what your message is. Now, when you are on stage, you are doing, there are 3 or 4 things that you are supposed to be doing. You are either there to educate, or you are there to entertain, or you are there to inspire or deliver a message to change people's thinking action. See, when you are on stage, you need to be clear about what you want to say and what you want the key message to be, what you want your audience to, how you want your audience to feel, and what you want them to do after that. So for me, that is each speech I do, what is the objective? What do I want to do? And what do I want my audience, how do I want my audience to feel? And what do I want them to take away?
Oh, great. And then, okay, before I let you continue, you gave me a good challenge. I remember now all those 4 things. The first 2 are related to each other. It's either you inform or educate, then entertain,
exactly.
then inspire.
Inspire, exactly.
Yeah, so I remember because I recently finished what's her name? The 2021 World Champion of Public Speaking, Verity Price. So next week, Tuesday, I will be interviewing her regarding her book. So even her, those things that you've just mentioned, the world champion said exactly that. You must educate, entertain, inspire, and, you know, all those 4 things I've just mentioned. So thank you for that.
You're going to have a ball of a time. I spent some time with her in the Bahamas. Geez, that woman has got a lot to teach, and I didn't realize it. Now I knew Verity. I've met Verity a couple of times. This is the first time where I've spent like 30 minutes to about 45 minutes with her. And within that 45 minutes, I learned a lot. You are going to have a ball of a time. I'll tell you that. Now you asked me about 3 things. The first thing is to know why you are on stage, right? That is number 1. Number 2, I always use a story because I believe that stories sell, facts tell, stories sell. It's easy. People relate better with stories. So I always use a story when I am giving a speech. Now, for those who've seen me speaking, they know that I use my hands, I use my gestures. For me, that is very important because they enhance my message. A lot of people say, yo, you get so animated when you speak. And I know because when I do that, I am able to keep your attention. You get able to listen to me throughout because I'm animated. And that's why we watch TV. That's why we go to movies. If we didn't get that in movies, we wouldn't go there. So those are some of the tips. There are many other tips. And I would want you to go buy Dr. Sibongisene's book, because you will learn all these things.
Thank you for that. Last question to you before we close. What are some exciting, or what is that 1 or 2 exciting projects you are currently working on that keeps you motivated and inspired?
I'm working on a lot of things at the moment. Firstly, I'm in Toastmasters, which is something that I would love everyone that gets to listen to this to go research on it, or if you can, join a Toastmasters club. As much as Toastmasters will help you with your speaking, it will improve how you think. It will connect you with a whole lot of people. There are many others occupying a lot of my time, which is we are growing more clubs in the southern of Africa, and we are helping clubs to have more people. Having said that, I am working on a workshop where I'm going to help you finish 2023, right? So that you can start 2024 at your very best. The dates are still I will announce the date in due time, but make sure that you get to attend that workshop. I will spend at least 2 days, could be 3. I'm still talking to a couple of people. 2 days where we really delve into the the ideas that are in this book and how you can apply them in your life or in your year so that you can have the greatest of 2023s and the greatest of 2024.
Sounds inspiring. And then when those dates are released, can you share the website as well as maybe your social media handles where people can be on the lookout for these important dates, as well as where to get the copy of your book and how much is it selling for?
Fantastic. My book is 220 rands if you are in South Africa, only 220 rands. And if you are outside of South Africa, you can get it on Kindle for $11. Kindle, Amazon Kindle, if you search Elite Productivity by Bhekisisa Ngomane and Amazon Kindle, you'll get it. If you want the book, go to bhekisisangomane.co.za. Otherwise, you can reach out to me on my Facebook. My name is Bhekisisa Ngomane. In fact, all my social media handles, if you look for me, just say Bhekisisa Ngomane, you'll be able to find me, and then I can be able to procure the book for you. My website again, bhekisisangomane.co.za.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, sir. And that brings us to the end of this episode. I appreciate your time and I appreciate the viewers for watching from the end, from the beginning until this point. Until next time, folks, cheers. That's it for us. Boom. It's finished.